Our next question is in the hands of Mr. Shimmons.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Do you see any conflict of interest in MLC sitting in departments whilst also fulfilling the scrutiny role? And would you sit in a department?
Okay, first up for this one, Councillor Skinner.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. If I take the second part first, if you'd have asked me, say 3 months ago, would I go in a department, my answer would have been no. However, having spoken to a number of members now, I have sort of gained the understanding of why MLC should perhaps consider departments. That said, I wouldn't automatically put my hand up and say, please sir, I want a department. I feel that I would have to have some skill or talent that I could give to that department, so it wouldn't necessarily be the first department that would be offered. If I felt I didn't have anything to give to it, then I would say I don't have anything to give to it. But if I did have some skills and talents, then yes, I would. Yes, it is. I don't see it as a conflict of interests in as much as that you can help within the department, again, to formulate policies within. And if you're going to reduce the numbers of members within a department, then I feel that it is important that you do have a member of Legislative Council within that department to help with the workload, to see that things are being done.
Thank you. Mr. Ramsay.
Yes, I think in a pure sense you would have the scrutineers completely detached from any part of government, but of course the reality is different. And I think departmental members are sort of semi-detached members of government, so any conflict is not insurmountable. I personally wouldn't work in a department because my focus would be on scrutiny. I think that's where I could add the most value. I don't think you have to have everybody crammed inside the departmental tent. I think it's quite good to have a few people unattached. But at the same time, I recognise the value of departmental experience for new people, and I think a lot of the candidates for Legislative Council could really make their presence felt as departmental members.
Thank you. Mrs. Hendy.
Having worked within a government department for nearly 10 years, I've seen the workload that department members have, and although the Lisbane report suggests that maybe it's just a minister and one member, especially in larger departments, I don't really think that's workable. And so if yourselves decided that my background and my experience might be worthy of taking on a department role, I wouldn't shy away from that. And in terms of potential conflict, one would hope that if that situation arose, you'd be able to extract yourself from heavy conflict. But you'd talk to your minister, you'd talk to your colleagues, and I think I could deal with that. I've sat on, I sit on planning now, and you have to declare if there's any conflict. It doesn't often happen, but you have to know in your own heart where there is a conflict. And I think to assist government, if it was felt that my skills were needed, I would be prepared to serve on a department, but the right department where I would be of use.
Thank you. Mr. Hardy.
Again, echoing some of the things that have already been said, I think that working on a department would give you useful insight into the way that things work. I think it would be a very, very valuable experience in terms of fully understanding how things work and what it is that is trying to get put through. I think that sometimes there may be a conflict because it would be difficult to be objective if you were deeply involved in a department and you were pushing something through and then you were presented something as a LegCo member. It might be difficult to remove yourself and look at it objectively if you put time and effort in and you're working towards the cause with a department. So it's a difficult one. I think fundamentally we're all here to try and make the Isle of Man the best that it possibly can be. I think you have a disparate, no, I keep saying disparate, but a different group of people with individual talents and skills who are all in this utopian dream working towards the same commitment. So I think that the skill set that is available to you, you should be best placed to put them in those roles. But then it is, how do you objectively look at things? So it's an interesting one. I think the skills should be utilised, but I think that fundamentally, if there is conflict, you need to remove yourself from that situation.
Mr. Cartledge.
Thank you. Yes, I do believe there would be a conflict of interest. I would like anybody to tell me where on this island, this wonderful place that we have, there are not conflicts of interest everywhere. It would have to be managed. Would I sit on a department? It would not be my intention to, but I again have read in Lisvane that the recognition of the amount of work that's undertaken by political members, having to be undertaken by political members, and if I was asked, I would consider it, but it's not something that I would automatically think about doing, purely because I would be looking to use my skills where I believe they sit best within that scrutiny role.
Thank you. Mrs. Sharpe.
Well, I read the Lisvane report, and it did seem very sensible that you should keep your scrutinisers in the Legislative Council separate to your MHKs in the House of Keys. From the outside, that does seem sensible. Over the last few weeks, I've talked to MHKs, and they've explained things from the inside, and they've explained that if you don't have anyone from Legco involved in a department, then how do you have someone go back to Legco and explain exactly what the process of a certain bill has been, what were all the trials and tribulations that went through, what was the initial impetus of that bill. So if you don't have that method, you need some other system in place whereby you can have communication between the two chambers. I don't know what that would be yet. Personally, I think it would be a shame to waste skills that a Legco member might have in a certain area, and at the moment Legco members do work within departments. I wouldn't be adverse to that if there was a belief that my skills would be of use in that area.
Mrs. Poole-Wilson.
I do think there is potential for conflict with the scrutiny role if you serve in a department, in the pure sense, because if you were serving on the Social Affairs Policy Review Committee, you can't be in a department which is being reviewed by that committee. So there is scope for conflict. I think the other way in which we have conflict in our small parliament is spreading ourselves too thinly. So, you know, if you take on quite a big department job or two big department jobs and you have a big scrutiny role, the danger is that you just don't have enough time to do them all well enough. So I think that there are real risks in that. Having said that, you know, I am very mindful of the fact that in a small parliament and with a small number of people, we have to make best use of all the talents and experience and skills that we have to deliver the best outcomes for the Isle of Man. And Tynwald has said it is in favour now of having MLCs in departments, albeit only one department, which is Tynwald's will. My thought is we focus very much on being in or out of a department for members of the Legislative Council. I do believe there is real opportunity to be more creative. My personal experience of being equality champion is actually a sort of government appointment with a specific remit to raise awareness of the Act and to support implementation of that Act cross-departmentally. So I haven't had to sit in any one department, but I have had the benefit of working cross-departmentally. So I feel I've gained some of that knowledge that we're all talking about that we think is important without necessarily being allied to one of those departments. I also think there's scope for us to find ways for members of the Legislative Council to be able to be attached to a department. I don't quite know, we would have to look and evolve the mechanism, but it's absolutely clear that members of the Legislative Council have to take legislation through the Legislative Council, have to not only be to grips with that legislation, but the underlying policy.
Thank you very much. And finally, Mrs. Chambers.
Thank you. I do believe, as Kevin said, yes, there are conflicts wherever we work, and I'm sure there are ways of managing those. We bring skills, and my obvious skill would be my background in health, but also the voluntary sector. But I would actually think and I've spoken to many people over the last weeks and know that this is an ongoing process that people feel very strongly about. I do feel that if I had skills to bring to a certain department, I would like to feel that I could fully utilise those within a department. I do realise that that might bring a conflict of interest, and I hope that I would deal with that when the time came in the correct manner.